Hello, everyone, and my name is Misty Gaither, and welcome to Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. And thank you all for joining us as we get into some wonderful stories about books and learn all about our next guest. Her name is Beth Castrodale. Such an honor to have you on, Beth. How you doing?
Oh, great, great. Thanks. It's such an honor to be here. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Now you are not just an author; you're an award-winning author. I've been, researching about you, and I'm going to start it off by a quote that someone said about you, and let's go from there. It says, "Castrodale is the real thing, a novelist who fuses modern humor and a great genre topics with warmth and courage." How about that?
That's nice.
That was what was said about you. So I really liked the part about the warmth and courage. And I know that you had a particular incident in your life. You're still kind of working on now.
Did you mean the brain injury?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So, that was in 2009, and
Hmm.
just kind of a freak thing. I was just buying some, kind of oddly, I was buying some flowers for a friend's mother's grave, and I just, without knowing it, I passed out cold in a supermarket, and I fractured my skull, and I had a traumatic brain injury, and I was out of it for a few days, and I really the process of recovering from that, like I had trouble reading and writing at first, and I had to go into rehab, and it was kind of a long process, but I was really lucky, honestly, because a lot of people, people recover or don't recover from that in various degrees, and I felt very fortunate. I mean, I really, with the rehabilitation and so forth, I really, really did well, and I think I give a lot of thanks to that, to wonderful people in my life that were supporting me. So I consider myself very lucky.
Like when you have an experience like that, I can only imagine that it makes you think about mortality. It makes you
Yes.
kind of have a question things more, or just want to dive deep into like the meaning of life and is there life after death, and just kind of come to more terms of your maybe your spiritual or mystic journey that we're on. And did you use some of your feelings from that to go into your writings?
That's a really, really good point. I definitely think that at the time, I definitely thought through all those issues about, mortality and just the fragility of life. I mean, there's so little that separates us from not being here, right? And not being physically present. And at the time, I didn't write about it. And as a matter of fact, for a long time, I thought, I don't know if I could ever write about this, but I think subconsciously it came out in my fiction in certain ways, like the ways that I dealt with grief and mortality with my characters. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, went into my late mother's address book, and I found some of her writing. It was kind of a documentary in a way of her decline through dementia, and you could just see her writing change and just become these wavering lines. And it made me think about, at the time when I had my brain injury, my mother was just beginning to decline with dementia, and I wrote an essay that kind of like brought together our two paths. Like, I'm definitely more susceptible to dementia now with this brain injury, and my mother had it, and I brought our two stories together. So that was the first time I wrote about it, which was like 15 years after my incident. And so I definitely felt like it subconsciously informed my writing up to that. But then finally, I actually brought it out to be a topic of my writing. And that essay was just published a little bit earlier this year, finally. So yeah, so that definitely all those factors came out of my writing for sure.
I just think that's amazing, that you're here with us and doing so well. And I know it's probably still a journey and maybe still a struggle because you actually are still doing a part of a case study.
Exactly right. Yeah, Ohio State University has an ongoing study of traumatic brain injury. And yeah, I've been part of that study for yeah, pretty much going like 15 years. And so the idea, hopefully, are the responses from me and from other participants will help inform some of the treatments that will go forward for people with TBI. So hopefully.
Yeah. Now your first novel, it took you a while to write it. I think we're in double digits to get to that point. Now, was it because you were just like researching, or was it because you just like maybe had an inner struggle about am I ready to do this, or can I do this, or what kind of happened to make it all come together?
Yeah, well, that one, it's funny. I have ever since writing that book, I learned so many lessons from that. I mean, I consider that book my MFA program because I learned so much about writing and what is best for my process. And I think the thing that I learned from that is that at the time I was working on that book, I would write a chapter and then I would have it critiqued with my critique group and then revise and then go on to the next chapter, revise. And what I found out is that like I was getting to so many revision rabbit holes that it was taking me forever to have forward momentum with it. And then I would go all the way back to begin and rewrite it. And ever since then, like with novels, what I don't show another soul a draft until I have a complete first draft. And then I get feedback because I just found like I think I'm a perfectionist. So I just, if I get feedback in the middle, I want to keep going back and back and so that ever since then, I try to be really disciplined about holding back on getting commentary.
Now, your first novel, now the one that we're talking about that took you about 10 years to write, is that is that Marion Hatley?
No, this one is Gold River, and that Gold River is one that
Okay.
I just brought it out myself, and actually people go to my website. They can get if you get on my email list, you can get a free copy of it. So that was kind of my learner's book, you could say. The first book that I got published was Marion Hatley.
You were even nominated for an award for that book for a first time author, I believe. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, to me, that is just such an honor, because you have so many people just writing books. I was asked today, I was on a podcast earlier, and they were asking, like, hey, are you going to write a book and all that? And I hear that a lot from, to different people. You ask them, oh, it's a wonderful story, you're going to write a book. And it's just like, so many people don't. And so I always admire those that do, because, it's just to use your creativity, and just to you have this thought, and you just put it down, and just run with it. And like you said, you have, like critiques and rewrites, and just the whole process to me is just so interesting. And then finally, what is that moment when you decide this is the end of the book? I have gave all of it, all myself, to completing this. I've listened to every, the people that you trust, and I'm sure, I don't know if you have an editor, because I know you used to be an editor. So, what is the defining moment when you say, this is it?
Oh man, there's never an end. I mean, I got no novel is ever finished in my mind. I feel like I feel like there's always something I could do, or like, and sometimes I'll have a novel published and I'll be damn, I should have rethought that area. So I guess the only thing I could say is that I reached the point of it's sort of a form of exhaustion, I think, where I feel like I think I've given this book everything I can, and now it's time to put it out in the world. Like it'll never be there's no way that they'll ever feel like it's complete, but I feel like it's as good as I can make it as a mere mortal, right? And so it's time to let it go and have its life in the world. So it's a good question, and I've sometimes I wish there were that magic thing of like ding, it's really
The
good.
microwave ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, a microwave sound going off.
So I'm really excited about your upcoming novel that, it's supposed to be released next month, September 2024, and The Inhabitants. I'm really excited about that because that deals with what? The paranormal. Now, did you base your book? I want you to tell us about, what it's all about, but did you use some of your own paranormal experiences to did you write kind of incorporate that in the book, or did you just?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've always been fascinated with like spooky stories. And when I was a little girl, I actually used to make my own spooky books. They were usually about haunted castles or haunted houses, and I would, write them and illustrate them. And so I've always loved them. But as an adult, I think I was always intimidated about writing one because I thought, oh, I've read so many great horror novels and seen so many great movies and shows. I'm never going to be able to really knock it out of the park or do a good job. So I was kind of intimidated about doing it. And then finally, I just thought I'm going to do it, and I decided to, I think continuing on that fascination that I had as a little girl about having a haunted space, a haunted house. The Inhabitants, my book, is very much about a space that is haunted in different ways. the character, the woman, she's an artist, a visual artist, and she inherits this place, and she's kind of haunted by a few things when she moves into it. She's grieving the loss of her mother. She's just had a bad breakup. She's kind of struggling with her art, and then she moves into this space that was built by an architect who, 19th century architect who believed that his creations could influence the mind. And he hoped that it would do so in positive ways. But when she goes into the space, things start happening and she's not sure if it's her or the space or if, the previous inhabitants of the space are coming out and kind of affecting her in some way. So it's kind of that idea of like the space, the house itself as being a character. Like I really hope that when people read it, they feel that there's something almost maybe kind of maybe even a physical embodiment or a presence about this house, Yeah, but my own little spooky story, and I can tell you more about it, but it definitely dealt with like a something happening within a space. So that I don't think I was thinking about that directly when I was writing it, but I think all of those things were in the back of my mind for sure.
You have two other books, I Mean You No Harm and In This Ground. And everybody, you can get these on your website or through Amazon. What's the best way? I like to pre-order your book for that's being released next month, and to get the books that you already have.
Oh, you're so kind. Yeah, the latest book, if people, there's anywhere that you can order books online, you can get it. And the publisher, like a lot of times I try to, if people are able to, I said the Regal House Publishing is the publisher. And so it's great if people can buy from the publisher to support a press, but they can also get it anywhere you would go online to order books, you can get it there. My other books would, Amazon, they can find them there for sure. And also there's my previous publisher, Imperfect's books. They can purchase my I Mean You No Harm. They can purchase that there as well.
Now, do you ever get writer's block?
Like usually I get it. Sometimes I get it when in the middle of a novel where I'm kind of just, I'm like, I'm not quite sure where to take this. And I usually find just taking a break will do the trick. Like sometimes I just need to, shut things down and do something completely different. And usually with time, things kind of percolate to the surface. But the tougher kind of writer's block for me is when I finished a book and I'm figuring out what to do next. And sometimes I think I really need fallow periods. Like sometimes I feel like, oh, nothing is coming to me. And sometimes I panic and I feel like, oh no, maybe I've written my last book. But I usually find that in time, sometimes you just need a break. And I don't know if you find that in your own life with your endeavors where you just feel like sometimes, you can't, even periods of rest are periods of creativity in a way because we need them to sort of refresh our battery and figure things out. So I think that second type of writer's block is more daunting for me, but usually so far, knock on wood, I've been able to kind of, get through it somehow.
You've really been like for a while in your life. I mean, you've had a lot to do with writing. I mean, you were a newspaper reporter. Now, were you had a column, or were you like a roving reporter that went and just on scene getting stories? Or tell me about that.
I worked as a business reporter, so for a small paper, and it was interesting. Like I was dealing with a lot of the small businesses and interviewing people about what was going on with their business, and then sometimes I do stories about trends. Like it was on Cape Cod, so there would be at any given time there would be something going on in the hospitality industry or things that that I would cover. And it was really interesting. I feel like I learned a lot from just working with a variety of sources. And it was kind of funny because I feel like one of my strengths has never been business or finance or whatever. So it was kind of funny. It was maybe good in a sense because I had to bring my own. I feel like I would really try to explain things. If I didn't get it, I would try to explain things in my reporting because I figured if I don't get it, chances are readers won't either. So that was kind of fun and rewarding, I think.
And it kind of laid the foundation, to what you're doing now, to about writing and the experience, and so I just think that that's really cool. Now you went from being a newspaper reporter to a editor at St. Martin's. Bedford St. Martin's. And so what were your responsibilities?
It was a fun job. I mean, it was a type of editing where I did do like, line editing, that sort of thing, but it went way back to like actually working with the author from the idea stage to like getting the idea, the concept of the book put together, and then trading drafts back and forth, and then, kind of really, kind of working and smoothing things and figuring out. Sometimes it would involve restructuring or rethinking things. And finally, it would be ready for copy editing. And but it was fun. I mean, it involved a lot of like I was involved in helping work with the designs, and then I would work with interior and cover designers, and then getting involved in even the marketing. Like I would help to write some of the marketing things, and then having to present the books to the national sales force. So it was a really like varied job, but it was a lot of fun. And it gave me a lot of respect for everything that goes into every book that I see on the shelf. I think, there's so many people and so much work that went into this book, and I never take that for granted. How great that process is, and being a part of it was really fun.
Now let's go back to the paranormal. What do you remember your first experience? Now, was that you did you ever like see anything or hear anything or
Yeah, so it's funny, like I have like so I have like the my first experience kind of came when I was an adult, like I was in my, I think it was around my mid-20s. And um basically, so I mentioned I worked at the Cape Cod Times, this newspaper reporter, and I lived in this cute little my landlords, I was in an apartment that was attached to their home. And it was a lovely place. I mean, it was probably like 50 yards from the ocean, and you could hear the ocean from even in the when the windows were closed,
wow.
you could hear the ocean at night. It was just a great place. And I never felt creeped out in there at all. But like this weird thing kept happening where I would go to work and I would come home, and like the thermostat, so this is like in May, and the thermostat would be turned all the way up, and then the casement windows upstairs in my bedroom would all be open. And I'm like, they had those kind of like turn latch locks,
Mhm.
it wasn't like they could just blow open. But I kind of doubted myself, and I'm like, maybe something's weird, like something happened. And um like no one else had a key to my apartment, my landlords, and they always let me know. And as a matter of fact, when the windows were open that the first time, my landlord actually said, could you mind just not leaving your windows open because the rain gets in? He was a really nice man. He was just trying
Mhm.
to, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. So I thought this is just a freak thing. But then like not that long after that, it happened again, and it was just, I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I did know that not long before I moved in, maybe a year or so before, the my landlord's daughter she lived there for a bit, and she had died. So I didn't know. I'm just completely speculating. I don't know if that had anything to do with what was going on. But I didn't know what to make of it, because it felt kind of it didn't feel like it was personal to me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like someone was like whispering in my ear or saying Beth or whatever. It was just
Mhm.
sort of this, I almost felt like I got pranked a little bit, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it.
Somebody definitely trying to get your attention or saying, "Hey, your apartment needs to be aired out." I don't know. But so do you watch a lot of the paranormal or read
Oh
a
yeah,
lot?
I'm fascinated with, I love reading. I love spooky stories of every stripe. I love that. And I love watching spooky shows, and for sure. And I'm always fascinated. I mean, I love hearing about other people's experiences, because it just seems like there's so many varieties, and there seems to be certain categories that repeat, like the same types of things happening. And you just wonder, I'm just fascinated with what's going on. And I never tire of hearing these stories, honestly. I think they're fascinating.
Oh yeah, because I mean we're all surrounded by spirits, and there's so many people that have experiences, and there's so many people who don't want to admit that they had, experiences. So, like when you were growing up, did you have particular authors that kind of inspired you? Like maybe when you were younger, like Beverly Cleary, Judy
Sure.
Blume,
Yep,
like
I love both of those
yeah,
authors.
yeah,
Absolutely. That would be like probably the two of what, like, as when I was a kid, that I enjoyed the most, I would have to say. Definitely. So I was lucky to be surrounded by books as a kid, and I think that's what got me started for sure.
yeah.
So,
Because you talk about, you like the paranormal and stuff, and then like horror. Like, do you like Stephen King? And whoever, is there anybody else? No.
oh
But like,
yeah,
Stephen King and just writing such amazing books that after what, 40, 50 years is still relevant and still captivates people in the movies and his books. And you're in Boston, so you're close to maybe Salem, around that area. Do
Yeah,
you
I
ever
love
go visit there?
I love Salem. It's funny though, like I totally like you probably already know this because it's like it's become a national news story, but it's so nutty there around like spooky season that you can't get near it. I mean, you'll sit in traffic for hours
Oh,
just getting,
wow.
but I like to go when it's like even like spring or like kind of the off season, but it's such a fun, wonderful place. And as you know, there's so much history there with the witch trials and there's a lot of fascinating history with it too. So I love it. And then Boston itself, like I feel like I honestly wish I knew more about the spooky aspects of Boston, but I feel like it does. I love just the old architecture and even my house is an old Victorian, so I always love that, I just love being in a space that's been around for a long time. I feel comforted by that, honestly. I love that.
Now, do you ever come this way to New Orleans? Have you been here before, or
Oh yeah, the last time would have been about like trying to think. I can't believe it would have been 5 years ago. I don't feel like it's been that long, but it sounds like you guys have a real history too, right? The
oh yeah,
spookiness and
we're the city of the dead. Yes, we we like I tell people we celebrate death. We throw a party, when someone passes, and have a little parade, and of course drinks, and just celebrating the person's life. And then we bury people different than most places because we're under sea level. So it's really an enchanting, spooky city for sure.
I love the cemeteries, by the way. Like I spent some time just wandering around and I thought it's so fascinating, like the whole I almost feel like it's kind of a museum feeling, like it's
It
fascinating. So
It really is. I think it was Anthony Bourdain, and I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not saying it, word for word, but he's talking about how New Orleans, it gets, he's been everywhere, but New Orleans, it just captures your heart, in your soul, and you can't really shake it because it's just so magical. And I guess I need to do a commercial for the tourism, but it's just a wonderful place. In Boston, I mean, you talk about history, you go back to Boston, and that's like old history.
yeah, totally. I mean, it's great to feel surrounded by it. And speaking of cemeteries, that's a really fun, like there's cemeteries right in the center, the public garden, there's these old stones and I love the old they have really the old if they aren't worn off too much, some of the old inscriptions and kind of the skulls with the wings, and they have these great sort of, funerary images that you see on these stones that are fascinating. It's just I could wander for hours in any cemetery here. They're just fascinating.
It brings out the history, like especially when you investigate the paranormal, or even in your case when you research about it. It really like you're more in tune. I think when people who are into the paranormal, or are around that genre, history. You have to have a love of history too, because there's just so much and amazing stuff that we may know a little bit about, but we research, and maybe there's more that's still yet to find out about what's happened at different places.
Definitely. Yeah, it's always interesting to just kind of see to actually read about the figures of history and the different locations. And then, you sort of, it kind of informs the present, the experience of being there in the present, I think, for sure.
What do you do when you're like in your time when you're off and not writing? Is there anything that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I mean, again, reading is a huge, huge thing for me. I enjoy, I run, I do, if knit of all things, I enjoy knitting. And I have a great dog that I adore, so we kind of hang out. But yeah, and I enjoy traveling. So there's a lot of things that keep me occupied. And then I have like, work stuff that I have to do, which is, has to be done, but
Has to be done. Yes, I do understand that. So you can get you can pre-order Beth Castrodale's book, The Inhabitants, go ahead and do that. Amazon, her website, and all the places that she told you where you can go. And I believe it's going to be like the best one ever.
Oh,
So
thank
I'm
you.
excited about getting my copy and reading it. So I think it'll be really cool. I really appreciate you sharing your journey and all about your writing and your personal journey. I really appreciate you being on the show. I hope you'll come back and join us after your book release, and we can help get your book out there more. And I know you're going to be going on a tour, book signings and different things to promote your book. So I wish you well in that. But thank you so much for being my guest here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting me. I really enjoyed our chat. So I'm looking forward to being back on at some point.
Okay, good, good. And if you're ever down this way to New Orleans, give us a shout. And we'd love to
Same
meet you in
here.
person. So, yeah, that would be cool. So, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Misti Gaither. Special shout out to Leilani for the tie. I like to sport the ties. So, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Brandon, my producer and director. And you know what? I will see y'all next week and have a good night.